Well, if you're here watching this, you've made it to Judgment Day. It appears that we are going to get a potential spot ETF approved finally after so many fake outs in the past few months. But you've earned it. You've deserved it. We're going to talk about it today, and sometimes you got to be careful with what you wish for. And maybe we'll see why pretty soon. But we're going to get into that and much more on today's episode of Money Never Sleeps. Welcome back to Money Never Sleeps. Before we get into anything, just a reminder, we are not financial advisors. Nothing we say is financial advice, so we cannot give you any advice on financial moves you're going to make. Do your own research. Consult with your own financial advisor. We're just a couple of guys that love talking about the market and the hysteria that comes with Bitcoin ETFs, which we should probably get into today because there was a lot of fun stuff that's happened in the past 24 hours. Maybe not for some people. There's definitely grown men crying in showers last night at a fake SEC tweet, but nonetheless, it looks like they're going to be very happy tonight. House, you joined me today. I'm very happy to have you. How have you been? What's on your mind today?
Honestly, man, I'm still laughing at a lot of the replies in the SEC tweet and the Postumus, the Postumus tweet they had saying this was a mistake, and it was all just the quote tweets of if you're going to be trading financially, secure your account in these ways, and then you get Musk firing back. Yep, no 2FA internal, not a or it was a hack, not internal, but no 2FA. It's just like, how are we? No one's already taking you seriously. How are we going to start taking you seriously when this is how you operate? It's wild.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more sympathetic towards the SEC just because I thought it was absolutely hilarious to see how invested everyone feels about this ETF to the point that some of the biggest news agencies and people that are not necessarily the first ones to jump in and be like, they approved an ETF, or some of the first people to actually say they approved the ETF. I saw Zero Hedge was very upset. There was definitely some petty comments and tweets that they posted, had pretty much aimed at Gary Gensler and the SEC. But it's been so much fun. I mean, I just can't believe that it's happened for what is this, like the third time or something like that. And the day before we were supposed to get the ETF approval, fake outs in the past few hours. Yes, there has. There's been tons of fake outs. We can also see that Bitcoin and a lot of these other altcoins have been having some pretty volatile price swings in the past few hours. But it seems all but inevitable that we are going to get that ETF today. It's probably going to come after the market close. And, we're going to see exactly how much of this is priced in. I think I'll step away from what Jweb says and how much has been priced in. I do think that the majority of this move has been priced in. That's just my opinion. But again, I could be dead wrong, right? This could definitely rally a few $1,000s more. I think it's probably going to go to $50,000.01. I think that's the exact number that I was telling you guys that, that's probably going to be the FU target that this could stop at. But at the same time, I think that there is going to be a bit of mania excitement. There always seems to be. But we do have a chart that says otherwise from previous crypto-related TradFi products once they were released or launched. And we can get into that in a bit. But what are your thoughts, man? Are you excited for an ETF? Do you think that's going to be the bull catalyst? Or do you think we're in a different place than most people that are excited about their bags being packed are probably thinking we're going?
I mean, I think it's a few different things for me, right? Like, I'm not planning on allocating any percent of my TradFi portfolio into any form of crypto ETF, and that's partly because I trust myself to self custody, as well as I really don't see the value in holding the asset in an ETF with the fees, right? Like, I can buy on Coinbase with Coinbase One. Granted, I'm still paying a monthly fee there, but also the amount of capital that I would have to store in that for it to be like a meaningful portion. Like, a lot of it just doesn't make sense. And then also, And I just really hated Van Eck's personality on Twitter the past month. They named their ticker HODL, trying to play into the 2021 Diamond Hands. They've been GMing all the Twitter and NFT influencers. And I'm just like, well, I don't trust you. I already don't really trust most of the other banks because of, what we've been talking about on the show for the past 3 months, mostly what you've been preaching. Um, and so at that point, there's just a lot up in the air. However, I do agree with you. I think we see a pretty profound injection of liquidity short term, and then a big crash. Can't emphasize the big enough. But what I thought was interesting yesterday, right, is looking at the reaction and then looking at other coins and how they reacted to it, right? Like Bitcoin started shooting down as soon as it was fake. ETH starts pumping. And maybe that's part of the reversal of Bitcoin dominance unfolding, right? People thought, okay, this is the pump, like this is a pump for ants, right? So the downfall is tremendous. So I think that's definitely something I'm going to be watching for today if we do see the approval. But yeah, I think that's the majority of my outlook. Like I think realistically, the ETFs just become another option for pension funds and 401ks to roll something into as a method of diversification. But I don't really see it being long term like a meaningful impact, especially, it goes against the whole ethos of the foundation of Bitcoin, cryptography, and cryptocurrency sense.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think, it just seems like, again, we've had a great year in 2023 for Bitcoin's price and all these alts for the most part. And we were talking about it yesterday. The Bitcoin dominance has been going up like crazy. However, the USD pairs of, say ETH, which ETH to BTC is bled out insane since, 2022, 2023, right around the beginning in there when dominance started going up. I don't see that the USD pairs don't eventually follow suit. And I do think that this is the perfect opportunity. And I'm not just saying that because obviously I'm bearish, but I'm saying that because we do have historical data when we're looking at some of these products that have been released. And let's take a look at that now just because it's, I think, important. It's something that no one else is posting on Twitter. But this right here is pretty much an overview of the four main things that have pretty much launched. This one's yet to launch, of products that were offered in TradFi that are related to crypto in some way, shape, or form. So obviously back in 2017, we got the Bitcoin futures CME. So that's the CME gaps that we always talk about. You can see that it literally came, let's see if I go on the daily, I think it's even easier to see. Yeah, Bitcoin futures ETF or Bitcoin futures CME for CME group. We can see that it came on the day. The height of the move was the 15th, I think, of Monday, the 18th of December 2017. You can see that was pretty much the height of the entire move. It was roughly, what was the height? 19,891. And you can see that in the weeks, even days to weeks following, we put in pretty substantial drop in the market. So let's grab from here and let's just say to this low right here. That's a 70.88% drop that we saw in the CME futures following the CME futures, right? If we want to even be more bearish about that and see where it actually bottom out after that, that's from here all the way down here, 83, almost 84% that move to the downside is. Now, that's a pretty massive move, and I'm sure a lot of people got really bullish on the fact that there was going to be futures on CME. It always seems like these things come out when there is a pretty good amount of mania. Let's move to our next one, the Coinbase IPO. And I think this one's a little bit more fresh in the minds of a lot of people because a lot of people were definitely around, GameStop and all this stuff. Once Coinbase said that they were going to IPO, people were going insane. I even remember waiting to see what it was going to IPO at because I was going to buy some Coinbase stock, and it came out at like $400 or something like that. And I'm like, I'm going to give it a few months. I still haven't bought Coinbase because I look at the chart and I think, you know what, there's some room more to the downside. But the day of the Coinbase IPO, which was the 14th of April, it appears that that was the actual top, the local top for this move. And it dropped in the months to follow to a low of about 55%. It dropped 55%. And it seems like the low was roughly around, let's say, 28,800 after wicking all the way to the top that day at 64,899. So we're seeing that these are massive moves once these products get launched. And the thing about these two is, and Cheeky Crypto, were some of the best TA analysts on YouTube. They made a really good point about this too. They said that these are all events that we are anticipating. And that anticipation is something that, the markets can price in really well. And that's why I'm saying that I do think a lot of this move is priced in. Let's go to the Bitcoin futures ETF. This one's a little bit different because the hike didn't come on the day it was approved. You can see that the hike came a few weeks later in November of 2021. But let's take the height of this move here. Or let's zoom out a little bit actually, because I think it goes even lower. This is the biggest one, I think, in terms of percentage drop. But let's take the height of this move up here, which is a few weeks after it got approved. And let's go all the way down to, say, June of 2022, which would have been a low. That would have been 74% that it dropped from that October launch. And then if we go even lower to, say, roughly about a year later, we're still down 77% overall on the which product is this? The futures ETF. So we're looking at historical plunges for Bitcoin's price in the months to even a year following some of these approvals and launches. Now we have to ask ourselves here, all right, we're sitting at roughly $45,266 as I speak. We are, let's say somewhere between 55% and 75%, just to be conservative on average for what's happened already. Let's take it from the height up here. Let's say 55%. That roughly puts us around, or let's say 50%, right? That puts us around $24,000, right? Let's say 75%. That puts us around 11,712. I'm not saying it has to get down there. I think there's a lot of things that are also playing a bigger important role than what's happened in the past. And again, that's the global macro outlook for the global economy. We're going to see definitely how much of an impact that it has on price post spot Bitcoin ETF approval. But we also talk about how in the pre-halving years, right before the halving happens, we definitely do see a really good retracement. We talked about that 35 to 40%. So at the very least, say from where the height was, let's go back, 35, 40%. 35% puts us around 30,000, which I think is a very conservative level that a lot of people are saying would be a healthy corrective move back down. We say 40%, that puts us around 28,694. And if we remember, well, that's pretty much where we were October 21st, I believe, of 2023, right before we saw the mania of, Bitcoin shooting up thousands of dollars on that one Monday. And then everything since has just been nonstop to the upside. So this is a really interesting chart. Does it have to be the same way as it has in the past? No, but it seems like it's rhyming pretty well. You never see a Bitcoin's future ETF down here at 15K, right? You don't see Coinbase IPOing with Bitcoin down here at, say, 30,000 when it was just at 64 or 65,000, right? It seems like they all come at the mania top, and that's the dangerous thing right now because a lot of people are extremely bullish, and it doesn't take much work to just look at the stochastic RSI right now and see that on the daily, yes, we are pretty much overbought. Let's see, 88 and 79, and even some of the bigger time frames like the weekly 100 and 100, and for the monthly 196, right? So when we look at all that stuff, it pretty much tells us that we're in an extremely overbought territory for Bitcoin. Could it push up a little bit more? 100%. Could definitely do that, but I just don't think it's going to be as high or last as long as some of these people are really anticipating, some of these people that are probably not taking profit just yet. Any thoughts on that? Because I think that's how I'm sold. I think that's what's probably going to happen. We're going to start seeing that peel back in the months to come, but I could be wrong, right? It's just a chart of how it's played out.
No, yeah. I think that made a lot of sense when you showed me the chart. I'd say the one, or not just the one, but so if we look at like CME, right, they're essentially just trading synthetics. They're trading futures. They're not trading the actual coin itself. So I can understand why there'd be hype around it, but that also shows there's a big reason why there's a crash, because people are like, oh, this is going to drive price action crazy. It's like, no, it just allows people to not hold Bitcoin but trade on its action. So,
Yep.
Yeah, that the crash makes sense. Same thing with Coinbase, right? It's like people can now buy it. They can not custody it themselves as an exchange. Doesn't you see the big run up, 69K, the crash makes sense because now you got a bunch of people who are probably just like, well, shit, I just bought a bunch of this thing. What do I do with it? They don't want to take it out of Coinbase. They don't want to, right? So I think the one thing with this ETF is it does require a significant amount to be held. So, and generally overcapitalized. But that to me, that doesn't say we don't get a crash at all. It just more so justifies that big flash candle up. And then you probably get some retail traders catching the bag on either side trying to trade it. And then you get people who are like, "Oh wow, I'm really in profit." Nuke. Right, but no, I was caught off guard at the start because right, like while you were mid going through that, we just saw a massive red candle that recovered about halfway, but on Bitcoin and ETH, someone's de-risking. They don't want to be involved in the ETF announcement. They got out of lunch, West Coaster, and they're just like, I'm done.
Dude, I know I've been the most annoying person on Twitter, and I'm gonna nominate myself for that because every time Will alert says like so much money's gone to Coinbase, I am just like supply, supply, supply. I've done that for 2 years straight. Well, just think about how much supply is actually sitting on Coinbase today. We saw last night 200,000 or 200 million, my bad, 200,000. That's fucking peanuts for this market at this point. But yeah, it was like $206 million. But there's a lot of money that's currently sitting on there. And I like someone, a trader, I can't remember who it was, maybe Ninja Scalp, maybe it was. They were like, this is bullish supply. In other words, like, yeah, they're just deposit. This is a bullish deposit. It's like $206 million. I'm like, he's obviously joking. He's just making fun of people who are like, oh no, there's no bearish thing about this ETF whatsoever. But at the same time, it's like we know a lot of people that were hurting from FTX and all that stuff are definitely grateful for this ETF mania because let's get out.
Well, and I mean the reality of it is like it's kind of a meme either way, is because no one knows what it is. Are those just people who are like, I'm not actually trading the thing, but Coinbase has futures now. I'm getting ready to trade futures there instead of CME. Is it someone doing that, or is it people getting ready to sell on the pump to buy right when the announcement, right? Like you realistically don't know. Hell, that could even just be market makers ready to add up. That could be Coinbase Prime, their institutional clients getting ready to buy some spot once it goes through, or you really don't know what the hell it is until it actually happens. Like it's not as clear cut and dry as, oh, we just saw 1 billion Tether printed, wonder, and deposited to Binance on Tron. Wonder what's going on here, right? So it's like
those
I
are a
think
little easier to
the whole
find
thing
out.
is kind of be. It's like stick to your guns. If you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Don't be the guy who plays it both ways and is right regardless.
Absolutely, man. Last thing you want to be doing right now, especially with how volatile things are about to get, is be chasing gains. I think that's the most dangerous and most foolish thing that any retail trader can possibly be doing right now. Let's take a look at a few things, and then we'll get into some alts, and then we'll just touch on what happened in China because there's been really no news today. I saw that Amazon's laying off some employees, nothing too crazy there. But let's take a look at liquidations because I think this is going to be really important in the days to come. Because with mania tops, we do anticipate that there's going to be a lot of people who open up leverage longs. Right? Yep, wrong screen. Once again, I did that again. Here it is. We're going to see a lot of leverage longs, and we can see that there's not much in terms of liquidity up north of where we currently are. Right? We're looking at maybe 1.55 billion, around 54,000. Obviously down here, it's a little bit less. I mean, it's a lot more. It's 6.69, but it's not as much as it was in the days prior. The thing is, I think that there is going to be a lot of long leverage that's going to build up down here. And it's just going to make all the more sense for there to be some type of flash crash or some type of heavy crash in the weeks to come. And that's because a lot of people right now aren't necessarily going to be taking profits. They're thinking that, hey, I'm in this for the long run Bitcoin. We're in a bullish state in the market. The TradFi market's doing extremely well. Good chance that Bitcoin is going to keep going up from here. And it's probably the same mistake that people have made in the past once you get close to these tops that are extremely overbought. And I think that it's kind of the perfect opportunity to liquidate some of the some of the early shorts of people who are expecting this Bitcoin to go down, and then build up tons of longs to the point where it's like, all right, now looking down, we have $10 billion before we finally hit even the nearest closest level of support that will actually hold. So I'm really interested in seeing how this builds up post ETF, because once Bitcoin's price starts moving, if it gets close to that 50,000, people are going to be like, "Oh shit, maybe I gotta dive in right now." And even if it's a 2x or a 3x leverage, I mean, I think he might get found on the way down at some point. It's going to be very dangerous for a lot of people who are putting in, a lot of money that they probably shouldn't be into this market, especially right now, this late, without having any type of plan in place, because I think that anything could happen in the next few days. And we're talking about massive wicks up, massive wicks down. And eventually, I'm 100% on the same page with you that we are going to see that good, massive, big crash.
See, what I just kind of like noticed, and I kind of want to bring up almost as a counterpoint real quick before we move on, is like we keep talking we've put this entire kind of crypto spin, assuming that the ETF does get approved tonight.
That's true.
It's like, if it doesn't get approved, how does the market react, right? Like, you'll probably see a lot of angry people wanting to dump, but then like if a bunch of angry retailers dump, what do whales and institutions do, right? Are they like, are we going to dump too? Are we going to buy up the retail dump and just like, so that's the other thing to keep in mind is it's not, I mean, while I do think it will happen, it's not a certainty. So it's also interesting in that regard, right?
Yeah, 100%, dude. And that completely, I think that lines up with what you and I were going to talk about, looking at some of the charts with some of the alts, because there are definitely alts that I think are going to rock off this ETF and are going to go up pretty parabolic. Any alts that you want to take a look at, because they're probably all the same pattern at this point, because I think everything's been trading fairly similarly for the past 2 months or so, and the structures are very close, 1-to-1 for each of them. So give us an alt or anything like that, we'll take a look at it and see how that compares with the pretty much the majority of how some of these are trading.
Yeah, so we'll go through two. The recent pattern, probably going back since like mid to late January, very similar but long term different. Let's start with optimism.
You got it. USD Coinbase.
Yep.
Yeah, man. That's very similar to how everything else is trading, right? We'll take a look at this. You can see on the daily, there's plenty of room to the upside for optimism. I think when you see a move like this coming down, that's a good chance that you're probably going to see a rocket up, and we're already seeing a bit of that right now. I think we'll probably see a lot more of that once the ETF does get approved. But if we're looking at this, let's be jerks about this. Let's say something like A, B. Actually, you can't do that. That's a little different. Let's get rid of that one. Let's just take a look at this and the 5 waves here. Then let's go here and say maybe wave. See, this wouldn't be wave 1, wave 2. Yeah, that doesn't. Actually, this makes sense. Wave 2 wave 3 being that long, and then we're waiting for wave 5 to come up here. Obviously, this would be a bit of a mania top. It would go higher than where we currently were. So I anticipate a new high for optimism if that's the case. And it just seems like everything's kind of primed for that. And if we look at this on the weekly and everything like that, sure,
yeah. So here's kind of what's interesting, layering over that is, so the final optimism airdrop that had been announced, airdrop 3, was September 18th. And that is one of the last dips before this local bottom end of October area. And from there, it just starts rocketing up. And this is also, the July, August timeframe, right when Base was launched, right? So building on top of the op stack, part of their whole super chain narrative. And yeah, so I thought that was really interesting to point out, because we talked about it a little bit on the show when Base was rocking, FinTech was doing all that. The other one's Arbitrum, if you want to pull up that.
Yeah. ARB, USD. Let's see, I'm just trying to stay away from USDT pairs, even those are probably going to be the ones with the most amount of volume. But I mean, this is pretty much a similar chart to what we just saw, right? It's going
Yeah,
really early.
I'd say
Yeah,
the
there it
main
is.
difference just being this is a not much newer by about a year, maybe a little bit longer than that, but yeah, just newer token and supply. It seems to be a lot more active in the DeFi and NFT streets that people are constantly, participating and transacting on top of the network.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, they similarly broke a new all-time high, and yeah, it's just going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, these are probably two of the biggest tokens that I think people are anticipating to outside of the major ones going into the next bull run. I mean, for the longest period of time, all it was ARB and optimism on your timelines. Obviously, alts have kind of quieted down with a lot of this Bitcoin ETF news, but there's room for these to go to the upside. I mean, these stochastic RSIs are primed for a few days of pushing up. I don't disagree with that one bit. And these two charts are pretty healthy in showing that this fifth wave has to come up unless this wave four is actually deeper than we expect and it goes below this wave one, which I don't see happening. Uh, we got to finish off this wave five, and this is going to be a little bit higher than wave three. We could even get an extension below off top where it pushes up an insane amount. And here's the thing I want people to remember about alts: even if it does go into a blow off top or something like this, don't think that it's going to take the same amount of time to slowly come back down. We're talking about liquidity here. That could disappear really fast. So you could see this. I mean, say ARB wants to go to $3 or something like that, say right around here. It could definitely happen, but it doesn't mean that it's going to stay up here for a period of time. That could just be a wick all the way up there, and then we're talking about this, in terms of months. You could see something very much like, say, this is March, June, and then say December or obviously this is a shorter time frame. Say this is like December or so, you could be seeing it at the bottom, double bottom, or something like that. These patterns are very possible of happening. Again, you want to see how they play out, but we're talking about liquidity, how little there might be in some of these alts after we see some of these whales sell off. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how high it goes, but also the mean retracements we're probably going to anticipate are coming in the months to come after that sell off. So really interesting. I just want to go through a few other alts real quick.
Yeah,
Matic,
real quick, while we're still on Arbitrum, I think the one thing to keep in mind with that too, heading into
oops,
2024, is so investors and the team, they had their first unlock when the airdrop went out. So that was the 23rd of March last year. There was a 1 year cliff, but now, so 23rd of March this year, and then every month on the 23rd, there will be an unlock. So that's another thing that factors in where, if Arbitrum wicks up and it's still up during that unlock, might see a nice pullback. But if Arbitrum, I think I said optimism, if Arbitrum falls, conversely, you might see a lot of people receiving Arbitrum and holding on to it, potentially, trying to rally the troops and the community back onto the chain.
yeah, that's a really good point. Again, so that would be March of 2024. We'd probably see another unlock. Was that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah, that's
far
the
off from
first
here.
unlock of the year.
So if it's still elevated the price of these things, there's a good chance that, obviously what you said, there could be a bit of a sell off. But also when you get these unlocks too, I think people in this community are pretty good at holding on to things and waiting for them to come back. $2 to 70 cents or something like that sucks, but we've seen crazier things happen in times when we think that the economy is going to come down and they rally even harder. So I don't think that people expecting it not to come back would sell if it does get too low to the point. They probably would hold. So that's a really good assessment there. I want to take a look at AVAX real quick. And then, I mean, this is very similar to what we were talking about. Let me just pull this up a little bit higher. You can see that we did not go higher than the bottom of wave one. So this is still very valid. The question is, if we do rally, which I anticipate that we are going to see a bit of a rally, do we go up a little bit higher? And does that pretty much negate everything that we've kind of watched on this? It does a bit. And we have to maybe look at these charts again, see how it played out. I don't necessarily like this chart for AVAX because of how long we consolidated sideways for the longest period of time before shooting back up. So we'll take a look at how that is. But regardless, if that does go up higher than, 50, what is this, $53.04, anticipate that this is probably invalid, but doesn't mean that we aren't going to see a correction still, right? But I do think
I
that
mean,
good.
I just can't imagine a dip in the Avalanche token price after they announced the ecosystem fund for meme coins. I just can't imagine their price going down.
Stranger things have happened. Bitcoin ETFs have been approved by hackers before, so it's very possible that this could see a bit of a dump. But yeah, I think that this is 5 waves right here. I don't think anyone would, argue with that. Seems like we are going to push up a little bit higher, and I think that's kind of where we are right now in the altcoins. We are probably going to see a lot of these do very similar things. I mean, Solana, everyone's favorite shitcoin that FTX somehow is miraculously kept up to help some of their creditors get out of some hot water. It's doing pretty well. I do think that this is one very similar to what we were seeing. This is probably a chart that's similar to what we were seeing with AVAX, and that's ABC. This makes a lot more sense, even with this consolidation period. But I do think that we are going to see a wave 5 for Solana. It's going to help a lot of people. They might dump a good amount. And again, I'm not talking about FTX directly, but anyone who had any type of exposure, shadow accounts that do have a lot of Solana exposure, they might take advantage of a bit of this pump that we probably will see. What else are we seeing? BNB. I mean, this is probably going to pump to $350 to maybe even $400. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that a lot of these ones that have some funky money in there, I think there's a good chance that they are going to see some of the biggest rips.
What percent of the supply does Binance still hold? It's like 70 or 80%, right?
I believe it's between 75 and 80%. Yeah. So it's still possible that they could.
Yeah, like what does it take for Binance to be like, oh, BNB price has gotten that X price target. Maybe it's time we let loose some BNB into the open market and try and plug some holes.
I mean, I'd imagine that they'd be doing it fairly soon at that point, right? I mean, $400 a token. I mean, just let's talk about that. Hypothetically, that's a pretty good level from where it was for the entirety of the year. It's it's 100% pump from some of these lows here around 205, 206. So to think about that, these guys are pretty much at the same place they were before the SEC ever even filed anything open against the company. So I think that's what we're probably going to see for a lot of these tokens, a lot of these exchanges that were hurt the worst. They're probably going to see a bit of relief here, and for them to push the price up that much, all they got to do is burn a few BNB, maybe hide some in different wallets, take some off the exchange, and then throw it back on later. There's a lot of things they could absolutely do, but that's pretty much what we're seeing for the alts. Let's take a look at total here. I know this has pretty much been an all crypto show, but I don't necessarily think that anything too much has changed. We talk about ABC corrective patterns. I'm talking about this one here, the smaller one. I'll pull it away from here. This one right here. You can see that we got 5 waves up, we got 3 waves down, and we got 5 waves to the upside. That's an ABC that's as perfect as it possibly could be. If we look at this in the grand scheme of things, we think it's a massive ABC. This one right here, 5 waves down, 3 waves up, and then we anticipate 5 more waves down. You can see that the daily, there's still a little bit more room to the upside, but the thing I want everyone to remember, look at how much volume there is compared to where there was prior to here. We can see that volume definitely has picked up in the past few days. That's a good thing to see, but that also tells me that there's probably a lot of retail investors in the market, and we're starting to see a lot of people buy and sell, and we're starting to see things just trade hands from, maybe institutions to retail. Keep an eye on that, but I do think that we are probably going to see a 5-wave move down once we do get the top of this move here. And I think that pretty much wraps up all the crypto analysis that we could probably talk about today without seeing any of the ETF approval. I mean, Bitcoin is currently sitting at 45,859. We're seeing that just fluctuate all day today. Once we get the approval, we'll see where that lands, where we go. But I think we are pretty much set and primed for an ETF approval. If you're a bear, you should be very happy, I think, today. This is something that you wanted to get out of the way because now there's no more talk of this ETF. People could buy it if they want to. If they have the money to buy it, they can. We'll see if they do. But looking at all of this, this is pretty much all that you're going to see on any of the major news stations.
So if we do get the approval tonight, you think it comes at 4:30 or 5:30?
I believe it was between 4 and 6 o'clock. They said that if it did get approved, they would announce it. I would anticipate that it's going to be after markets close. I'm trying to think if the impact it would have on TradFi after hours. It'd probably be closer to. Are you thinking 5:30 Eastern Standard?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I would say that would probably be the. Actually, no. I think it might be earlier. They might just want to get this shit over with. It might be the 4:30, and then they give 30 minutes for markets to close, and then you get to see how it reacts. But Bitcoin is not going to sleep tonight. Money is not going to sleep in that market. It's going to be very fun to watch. So definitely keep an eye on that. Let's see. Anything else you want to touch on in crypto, or we just finish this up with China and then call it a day?
Yeah, let's finish it up with China. I've been doing a lot of research into some new chains and tokens, looking at a lot of alternative layer one EVMs as well as layer twos that are running parallel. So I think it'd be fun to dive into those, in the aftermath of whatever happens with the ETF, because one of the narratives that's starting to drum up, and I agree with in part. I have a thesis that runs kind of, I wouldn't say parallel, I'd almost say like perpendicular or diagonal. Um, but as that post Bitcoin ETF, there's going to be a lot of attention on the EVM ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone's saying there's going to be an ETTF. I'm not going that far. There probably will be at some point, but there are all these wild other parts that go along that narrative. So I just cut it off there, and maybe I'll share my thesis at some later point.
Definitely. It's put it this way. Once, and maybe this makes me one of the worst traders in the world, but once everyone starts getting extremely bullish, I get obviously extremely bearish. But once everyone starts getting really bearish, I get so freaking bullish early. Like if I know Bitcoin's going down, that's when I'm probably gonna do all my research on all the tokens and stuff and things I want to buy and the assets. And I'm just like, okay, just pick my price target's gonna pick them up. So I think that's gonna be great when we start seeing the price come down, because it's not going to be very fun watching the price come down after a while, because it's just going to be never ending. So it's going to be definitely good to fill some time on the show with anything that we could be looking to pick up as the price is getting closer to targets that we want to pick things up. Now, I want to finish this off with China because everyone's worried about the ETF. I'm worried about the HSI, Hang Seng Index, getting close to breaking 1600 again, getting close to being in the 1500s, which it has already been there this year, but there's something that happened in China this week, and there's something that's happening Saturday that's going to be pretty important. And there's also something that happened at the end of the month that's going to be very important regarding Evergrande. But we could see that there's definitely some cracks in the forecast, as we can see that the CSRC to lift ban on net stock selling. So which this pretty much means is that funds in China no longer have to buy an equal amount of what they sell, which kind of fudges the actual value of a lot of these markets in China. And since we've seen this, plus what's happening with Zhongji and their bankruptcy filing, we've seen, I think, 5.7% drop in the Hang Seng Index quietly this week. And we can see that it's been a red month to start the year. So I'm going to pull up the HSI now on TradingView, and we can just see exactly what's happening there, because no one's talking about it. I mean, even if we look at Japan, Japan's doing something completely different than what Asia's doing right now. But we got to zoom in, and we got to see that it was Friday. Let's see. It was Friday, January 5th, when we got the Zhongji information. It was post market, so we never saw what the market was doing until that Monday. And obviously, we had a 1.88% drop that day. You can see that we dropped, 0.21% the next day, and then we're down another 0.57%. But if we look at this on the monthly, you can see that we're down 5.57%, and it's a pretty big move to the downside. And the reason this is really important is because we have roughly 3 weeks or so left in January, 2 weeks or something like that. Again, I'm bad with calendar math, but there's the monthly stochastic RSI, right? And then let's pull up the 200 EMA and the 50 EMA. That death cross is going to happen to start February. I don't care what anyone says. There is no way this market's going to rally. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that China right now is a generational buy the dip opportunity, and I 100% see why they could see that. And I'm seeing this trend, this channel. It keeps going down. It's going to hit the bottom of this. If it holds, then you're still trading in the channel, but it probably would rally. But we have to think about throwing technicals sometimes out the window when there are greater forces at play. And I think that bankruptcy filing is massive. I think what's happening this Saturday is a massive event for the Chinese economy moving forward. I also think that Evergrande's, knowing that there's bankruptcy filings happening now, Country Garden, if there's a fire sale of assets, I mean, and we're starting to see that they don't have to necessarily buy as many stocks as they've been selling. I mean, they just have all the floodgates to see this thing drop even more significantly. So I'm not saying that we're going to continue to see it go down this week. We could see a bit of a bid day. People obviously have to trade it, but at some point, I do think that this trend line down here might not hold. We have a bottom here at 15. Was it 1575, 15972? 15972 is the bottom there. I mean, we could break this. I mean, if next thing you know, we're down maybe at the 1460 level, 14,600, and that puts us right around the October 2022 low. But I'm not saying that this is going to happen. We have to keep in mind everything that's going on here. This is 2008's low. I'm not saying we get there, but we're already down here at 2011's low. We're going to see how if we are able to hold 2022's low. But if we're not able to hold that, then there's a good chance we could be coming down to 2008, the great financial crisis low. And, at that point, I would anticipate that a lot of the things that are going on over there with the commercial real estate and debt and, US dollar shortages are probably going to come to light. That probably indicate that there's a lot of other economies that are also in pretty dire consequences at that point. So just something that we need to keep an eye on. I know it's not as fun as a Bitcoin ETF, but it is definitely something that's going to impact how much money institutions are going to be able to be deploying if there is a bit of a dollar shortage, which I do think we are on the verge of. So I'll leave it at that. I think any final thoughts before we wrap it up, or are we all good today?
No, I think that was good. My one question would be, how much exposure can you get as a retail trader to Chinese markets? Like, is that something where you're trading Forex versus finding funds listed in the US? Or can, a retail trader just find somewhere to trade Chinese markets? Like, what does that look like? Because personally, I haven't done any trading of it, but it's honestly something I may look into just F around and find out, as the kids say.
Definitely. Like I definitely think that China will be a buy at some point. Just I don't think it's here. But you can definitely buy OTC. They have tons of stocks that are Chinese companies you can buy OTC. Obviously, that means you can't do any type of shorting or anything like that. You're just buying spot and then you're selling it. It's the limit of what you can do. Mutual funds, you can also buy. You can do some forex trading. There's also a lot of good funds here in like ETFs here in the U.S. that you could purchase, and obviously you're gonna have to trade those a bit because ETFs do run out from time to time where money just starts pouring out of them. But it is good to see that there is a lot of exposure you can get to Chinese companies. If you are interested in purchasing some of that dip when the time does come, whatever that is to you, they're
Oh
definitely
wait, we got breaking. I see it from DB Tier 10K and everyone else in my timeline. The first ETF has been approved.
oh my goodness, here we are live. We're
ETH
here for
just
it.
shot up. Bitcoin shooting up, recovering from near the bottom of that red candle.
Let's pull it
Let's
up.
see if we can get a reputable source that isn't just someone with a blue Twitter check mark.
Like I said, fourth time's a charm, right? We love these fucking fake outs. But let's do what other people don't do. Let's verify, right? You can stay on for a few more minutes, see what happens there. But I got the chart up. I'm gonna pull up the minute chart, 5 minute chart. All right, let's do the minute chart. It's fun that way. We're crazy. Oh, ooh, red candle. Ooh, red candle. Red candle.
Oh yeah, it's going down bad. It's
Ooh,
fighting itself. I'm just gonna go on the SEC website.
yeah, that's probably the best way to do it, unless someone hacked that too. Ooh,
I'm trying to pull up the SEC website, but it's literally just giving me news results of the SEC hack.
let's see. I got the minute chart up here. I'm gonna zoom in so that way we can all watch it. But get rid of that stochastic RSI meter. This is fun. I've not seen. I mean, we knew it was coming, right? But I'm really interested in seeing how this price reacts. It's a really good move down. They said they're going to do it post market though. That's why it's kind of weird that we're seeing it with 15 minutes left in the day. Let me see if I can find it too on Twitter or find someone.
Yeah, no, the only press release I see on their website from today is that they charged SAP for some sort of monetary sanctions for bribery. Yeah, they charged SAP for some sort of bribery scandal. Nothing about
I
an
got DB's
approval.
tweet. That's it.
Yeah, like DB is normally pretty reliable, um, but okay, now I'm seeing some other people say it, but I still feel like I can't. Like, why is DB the guy?
Right, right. He's the first
That's
one
in
getting inside.
like like is DB who all the institutions are going to be like, oh, he sent the tweet, like no knock on him. Never met the guy. Sure, he's a great guy, but like maybe that's why we're seeing this fight on this specific candle is because people aren't sure if it's
Real or not?
real.
Emotions are high. Everyone's crying right now because they thought it was real.
And I
Now
was
it's
just
not real.
excited because I was just excited because we're live right now, and I was like, man, we can be here breaking, but I
I was
don't.
hoping. I don't think it's real.
Yeah,
But let's just wait a few minutes. Just to also preface this, we do know that crypto markets and TradFi for the most part are somewhat correlated. When we see, obviously, we saw in October of 2022, and then November 2022, they both kind of bottomed around the same time. Same thing with hitting the heights back in November of 2021. So if we are hitting a top in crypto, we have to kind of question what's going to go on in TradFi. We are seeing a bit of a sell-off in TradFi to end the day. It was up 30. We're in the S&P. It's at 19 now. And again, we know that's something else that we didn't talk about in the show is that the ETF is coming out before earnings. Put on a tinfoil hat there for a second and just kind of think like, well, okay, maybe people are going to feel great about some about the Bitcoin ETF, but once earnings come out, I mean, Friday we got some big boys. We got some of the banks. Some of my favorite ones are reporting earnings, but in the weeks to come, we do see that we're probably going to get some bad Q4 numbers. So I'm really interested to see it. We're also expected to see some hot CPI tomorrow, which is really interesting. So Morningstar and a bunch of other ones are saying they were probably going to come in a little bit hotter. Is what it is. I don't think it's a big problem either way. Rates are still 5.25, 5.5. So if that's the case, then this is just putting more pressure on consumers at that point. So it's a very interesting time in this market. But I do think that everything should start to turn around together once people realize there is a bit of a dollar shortage. And I think getting this ETF out sooner than later, as opposed to waiting till March, is probably the best thing for bears if you do want a bit of a sell off in markets. So keep an eye on that.
yeah.
I don't think
Pull up
DB's.
the pull up the ETH chart for your own
Yeah.
entertainment.
Please tell me it's good.
It's looking better than Bitcoin's right now.
Oh wow, complete opposite. So whenever Bitcoin goes down, ETH is the way. So with what we're seeing is rotation of capital.
We said at the beginning of the show, rotation of capital.
100%. And we did it before the actual ETF got approved. So if anything does happen, it's just money moving from one spot to another, hoping that the price goes up. Someone's getting screwed. It always is. It's probably retail. But yeah. How do you want to end this? Do you want to stay on the show for a little bit and watch this, or do you want to just call it a day and let everyone get back to life?
I say we call it a day, and yeah, I mean, I got another call coming up at 4, and honestly, if the SEC does approve, okay, wait, I see Bitcoin Magazine also. I don't trust them as a reputable source either. Which is really funny because their bio is the most trusted source in crypto. It's like you're probably like I trust Altcoin Daily more than you almost.
Oh, that's a big jump there too. I trust no one. But I
I
agree.
don't trust
Altcoin Daily
either of
definitely
them.
has. Did you see the Altcoin Daily stuff about how they're afraid to say anything about BlackRock? Like, I think they can sue me if I say this about BlackRock, and it's like they can't sue you if you're telling the truth. Gotta love these
Yeah,
influencers, man.
it's probably. I mean, who knows? But yeah, no, I think we're in a good spot to close it. Best of luck, everyone. May your ETF wishes come true.
TradFi's pulling back hard now. I love to see it. Love to see it. We called it right before the end of the show. All right, guys. ETF, it's probably gonna get approved. Just don't get faked out this time, because if you do, well, honk honk, you might be a clown. Just kidding, everyone. That was a pretty convincing tweet that Gary Gensler's account or SEC posted yesterday. But we'll probably see an ETF approval. Watch the charts tonight. Don't get too caught up in it. You're gonna see a lot of mania. Just sit back, watch Jweb Taylor like I did yesterday when all the craziness happened, and just enjoy it. I think this is a fun time to be alive. We gave you some pretty good information, but always make your own financial decisions. And we will be back tomorrow. So, House, we'll try and get you on again soon. That way we can all be on and just talk about all this mania because I think this is a perfect time to be creating content and just enjoying the ride. So that'll be it for today. Everyone take care and we will see you next time.
Take care, guys.